Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at NDN TV Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button and be the first to get notifications.
The human rights community in the Niger Delta has condemned the setting ablaze of MT Tura 2, a cargo vessel conveying stolen crude by military operatives recently along the Warri River in Delta State. Correspondent Ekana Amiofori reports that while some civil society leaders fear that the military action could have a negative long-term impact on the environment, others have raised concerns over government's sincerity in the fight against oil theft in Nigeria.
On Friday, July 7, 2023, MT Tura 2, an ocean-going vessel conveying some 150,000 metric tons of stolen crude oil, was intercepted off the coast of the Escravos. The rogue vessel, which had a 12-man crew on board, was reportedly on its way to Cameroon when it was intercepted by operatives of Tantita Security Services Nigeria Limited, a private company engaged by the federal government of Nigeria to provide pipeline security in the Niger Delta in collaboration with a joint military task force codenamed Operation Delta Safe. All 12 crew members were arrested on the spot while the vessel was taken to the Warri River and set ablaze by military forces. While interacting with reporters on the scene, Executive Director in charge of operations at Tantita Security Services said MT Tura 2 was destroyed to sound a note of warning to a criminal syndicate of oil thieves operating in the Niger Delta that it was no longer business as usual.
The whole idea of destroying the vessel is to send a strong message to all would-be investors in illegality in Nigerian waters that this is what they are going to face if they so wish to tow this type of business.
The setting ablaze of MT Tura 2 has continued to generate a backlash from environmental rights campaigners in the Niger Delta. Executive Director of the Health of Mother Earth Foundation, Reverend Nimo Bassi, describes it as a brazen act of ecocide in a region that is already battered by hydrocarbon pollution.
This was not a way of stopping oil theft. It was a way of destroying the environment and exposing our people to grave risk. It is well known that just one drop of crude oil contaminates 25 liters of water and renders it unsuitable for drinking. Now, when you release thousands of barrels of crude oil into the aquatic ecosystem, you are poisoning the fisheries, you are poisoning the water itself, you are poisoning the citizens. And so the long-term effect is that, killing the people by installment.
The arrested crew members have since been handed over to the Delta State Command of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. Rear Admiral Olusegun Ferreira, commander of the Joint Task Force Operation Delta Safe, says investigations are ongoing to unmask and prosecute all who are involved in the crime.
When a vessel involved in such of crime is arrested, the suspects are taken into custody. Investigations are ongoing. The product on board is taken for test by NNPC or DPR, and thereafter, once the investigation is concluded, the next appropriate actions are taken. They could be prosecuted in court, and of course, the vessel will be handled in accordance with extant directives.
In spite of Rear Admiral Ferreira's assurances, many fear that the setting ablaze of MT Tura 2 to a large extent destroys evidential basis for investigating the criminal offense of oil theft, which has been a recurring decimal in Nigeria. In 2003, MT African Pride, a Russian vessel laden with 30,000 barrels of stolen crude oil, was arrested on Nigerian territorial waters. The vessel had disappeared while in the custody of the Nigerian Navy. Some top naval officers had been punished following the verdict of a martial court. Last year, MT Heroic Idun, another rogue vessel conveying stolen crude oil, escaped arrest under suspicious circumstances in Nigeria. The vessel was arrested and detained by authorities of Equatorial Guinea for 3 months. In November last year, MT Heroic Idu and its crew members were released to the Nigerian Navy, which escorted them back to Nigeria. All 26 crew members were charged to court and later released in May 2023 after entering a plea bargain. Professor Ben Nanem, who teaches economic history at the University of Port Harcourt, has carried out extensive research on oil theft in Nigeria. He says the country is losing the fight against oil theft as a result of lack of sincerity by the federal government and its agencies.
Why did they have to destroy it? Okay, to destroy the evidence? People have been questioning, because once you destroy the evidence, you cannot prosecute anybody. Every now and then they parade some small fishes that are involved in oil theft. These are not the people doing it. In fact, these people that they catch and parade on the TV, in the media, they are victims. Poverty has pushed them into that. Why can't we have a compendium, a list of people involved in the oil theft business? What is the government playing? Whom are they fooling?
In over 2 decades, the Nigerian economy has been bleeding from colossal oil theft. A report released by the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative in April this year reveals that Nigeria lost over 619 million barrels of crude oil valued at 16.25 trillion naira between 2009 and 2020. Professor Nanem advises the Nigerian government to demonstrate the political will to stop oil theft, just as the Mexican government did in 2018.
AMLO, okay, who is the current president of Mexico. You see, when he came to office in 2018, he campaigned on the basis of dealing with organized crime, of which oil theft was part of it. And by the end of 2018, very drastic measures were immediately put in place, including deploying the military. There was a military surge to control the pipelines. That done, he now moved drastically to the country's major oil companies, sacked all the officers that were, complicit in oil theft, because much of the theft in Mexico is done in-house in collaboration with people in Pemex, which is the main oil company in the country. So if we really mean business, we can take such a drastic step in the country and everybody will realize that it is not business as usual.
Residents of largely backward oil-producing communities in the Niger Delta, and indeed all concerned Nigerians, look up to the government of President Bola Tinubu to put up a strong fight against oil thieves, who for too long have had a field day in their illicit operations.
Inside the Niger Delta,